Everyone knows that feeling, wanting to experience more stories, but struggling to find the time. That's where Audible changes everything. With over 1 million audiobooks and Audible originals, there's a story waiting to spark anyone's imagination. Take The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley, the gripping psychological thriller that's keeping listeners on the edge of their seats. Imagine unraveling its mysteries during your morning commute, or losing yourself in its twists and turns while doing household chores. That's the magic of Audible. It transforms daily routines into opportunities for thrilling discoveries. The best part? Members get access to thousands of included titles, with new content added regularly. From bestsellers to hidden gems, every genre imaginable is at their fingertips. And with one easy-to-use app, switching between favorites or discovering new passions has never been simpler. There's more to imagine when you listen. Start a free 30-day Audible trial and get your first audiobook free at audible.com/Wondery. That's audible.com/Wondery.
Now it's time for Inspirational Women and my guest, Susan Wiggs, a New York Times best-selling author of more than 50 novels which have been published in 30 countries and translated into 24 languages. Susan brings us a great summer read at just the perfect time. Welcome to Beach Town introduces strong characters, in particular Nikki, who we experience at two key time frames in her life, at high school graduation and then 15 years later when tragedy has interjected another defining moment. We can cheer and cry with this character and learn more about ourselves. So let's hear more from Susan Wiggs. Susan Wiggs, good morning, and thank you so greatly for being with us today.
Kate, it's such a pleasure to hear from you again and to talk to you about my upcoming book.
And thank you for bringing us another book. Your books are such a treasure. And you know, there's always this dilemma with a great book. It's like, oh, I need to know what's going on. Oh, but I don't want to go too fast. I don't want it to end. It's such a tug of war, like keep moving, don't move kind of thing. So I'm glad that you are such a beautiful, prolific storyteller.
Well, thank you. I was just speaking with somebody about Welcome to Beach Town, and I realized that it has been 36 years since my first book was published. And it kind of blows my mind when I look back over all the books that I've written. And actually, of all the books that I've written, Welcome to Beach Town probably embodies the kind of story that I most love to tell. And it never turns out exactly as the writer envisions it when you're first setting out to write this story. But it was one of the most fulfilling books that I've ever read, mainly because it kind of covers a woman's whole life. In all the different stages. So it was a challenge to write, but it was also a great pleasure.
And I'm so glad you're saying that because the story is just compelling, and of course writing about women in our lives, and we relate to so much of it, even if I'm not a surfer, and many of us are not going to be surfers, but just the essence of what goes on and the challenges we face in general. To go through this with Nikki is just so amazing. All the ups and downs and ins and outs, and you're saying that you just weren't necessarily expecting the way it would evolve.
I wasn't. I didn't know much about this story going in. You know, sometimes a story kind of I trip over myself, to write it all down because I know exactly how I want it to go. But this one unfolded in bits and pieces as I was I kind of wrote my way into it. And Nikki, the main character, is probably my favorite character that I've ever written. She's a lot of things that I am not. You mentioned she's a surfer. I have taken surf lessons, and I've actually successfully surfed a time or two, but not more than that. She's an artist. I'm not an artist, not a visual artist. So she has a lot of qualities that I admire in people and that I'd love to write about. And she was just such a striver, and she started at such a interesting spot in the story when she's I'm one of the few people who really love commencements, high school graduations, college graduations, because there's such a clear turning point in a life. We don't always get that moment where we say, our path could go here, our path could go there. But at commencement, you do have that moment. You're never going to go to school again, to high school. You're never going to be in this same situation again. And so it's really, it's such a fraught moment. And so I kind of put my character in that situation and then decided, had to decide with her which direction to go. So, yeah.
Well, the direction is perfect. I don't know what else she might have done, but it just reaches so many highs and so many lows. Suffice it to say that much, right? And then everything in between that you include. I mean, there's so much of our life, and yet it seems like it's just perfect because it fits naturally, all the different kinds of things that we can go through in our life. Touching on cosmetic surgery, which is such a big thing. You work it into the texture of the book. Hazing that goes on in high schools and colleges, and we've seen the repercussions of that. It's just... and it just seems like it fits naturally into it, not at all contrived.
Oh, well, thank you. I was trying to, I was listening to the things that students say at the end of high school, and I tried to embody all that with her and put her, kind of in a dramatic situation. And so, since it's a Susan Wiggs book, it has to be kind of a big moment there that kind of kicks off the rest of her life. But, and I also knew that I wanted to write a beach book because I knew that it would be published in the summer. And other than, failing at surfing, I love to, sit on a beach and read. So hopefully readers will do the same.
Well, and exactly. What a perfect book for summertime. And yes, definitely seeing ourselves at the beach with a nice big beach hat on to protect ourselves from those ultraviolet rays, of course. But this will be entertaining from front cover to the back page and just wanting to have more. And in fact, then I want a movie. I think they need to opt this for a movie. I don't know how they do that, but they should.
From your lips to God's ears. I could. This was one of the most visual stories. There's surfing and there's travel and there's a beautiful town and they're restoring vintage Airstream trailers and lots of different. Lots of different visuals for it, but a pretty small cast. I didn't want her to have to. I didn't want to have to juggle a huge cast of characters for this because I wanted it to be a really personal and intimate story. And so her world is kind of small because her emotions are so big. And so as I finished it, I have a film agent named Lucy Stilla. I told my literary agent, tell Lucy, this is the one with the small cast that any budget could cover. So please make the movie.
Well, yes, absolutely, because the story just, it does cover so many topics that are so relevant to us today. And I think we can just to read it is definitely important because we just have our own personal experience. But to see it on a screen and get into it from a different medium, I think also just has so much value. Just like I felt with The Apple Orchard made into the film. I loved it.
I did too. It was such a great vision of the book. And it wasn't the book. It was a different art form, and I really kind of appreciated that because a book is not a film, and vice versa. And so I was more than happy that they captured the spirit of the story, and they made the changes that needed to be made in order to fit it into a TV movie. So I love that one as well. Hopefully the same will happen for this. They just optioned The Beekeeper's Ball, which is a sequel to The Apple Orchard. So we'll see if that gets made. That would be fun.
It would be fun because I love that book too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, and Welcome to Beach Town has a such a beachy vibe. It could be filmed in Malibu. It's such a Southern California place. And then she's a plein air painter, which my brother was, and it's a fascinating process because to be termed a plein air painter, you really have to do 80% of it outdoors, and it makes you observe the world in such a unique way. So I loved that about the book, and I love the surfing. My previous book, Sugar and Salt, was about food. It was like food on every page. I probably gained 10 pounds writing that book. So with the next one, I thought, well, I better write about an athlete or somebody who, is not so food obsessed.
And food factors a little bit, mostly what is it? Frito pie is a big deal here.
Oh, you know what? I had to cheat a little bit because one thing that is very true of swimming and surfing and fun in the waves is that you get really hungry doing all those things. So there were, a couple of scenes, and Frito pie is such an iconic thing between single parents and their kids because the kids like it and the single parent doesn't have to do anything but open a can of chili and a bag of Fritos.
Yeah, and then
so
let them be creative.
Who's not big on cooking. I mean, she grew up in an Airstream trailer, so that was a little convenience I threw in there.
Right. It fits. I mean, it's just so natural. And then when it resurfaces, it just really, kind of brings in kind of that coziness and connection between dad and daughter.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I didn't plan. Guy Graziola, her father, he's kind of a surfer dude. He's quite alternative, and he tragically loses his baby's mother when she's just a baby, and he's a single dad, never planned it that way, and they definitely have their issues. And one of the things, this is the value of a really keen editor. My editor Rachel at William Morrow Books pointed out. She said, this was probably my favorite relationship in the book was the way that Nikki and her father grew through the years as their story kind of grew up around them. And, he ends up having another daughter late in life, and she finally is able to step back and see what her father has done for her, even though they had their issues. And so I really appreciated that she pointed that out and had me really sharpen and make that even more emotional in the book.
It definitely was. I had to have my Kleenex with me through the book, but it's worth it. It's totally worth that. I'll do it anytime.
Oh, well, thank you. Hopefully it was a nice triumphant ending.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it was.
I'm always aiming for the happy ending, but without making it too unrealistic.
Well, and here's the term I came up with. It's idealistically real.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. I like that.
Well, and that's what it felt like. There's so much idealism. Nikki is so much about that, about truth telling, and this that it's not without some struggle, but ultimately truth wins out. And my goodness, I think in our world today, we really just want truth to come pouring out on us. And so it's great and so refreshing to have her hold to that in the book.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that, Kate. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's the truth. It's just the way it is. The other really big thing here with Welcome to Beach Town is love and loss. And I feel the way that you've handled this is to make it be just a natural part of our life. We can't have just really one or the other, but the way that it weaves through, it's just authentic, and I think helps us to maybe deal with whatever it is that we're living through at the time, because it's just life.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, too. It was written during a really difficult time for me personally. My brother had pancreatic cancer, and so we all know what direction that goes, and so it's dedicated to Dee, his wife, and it was. I had a lot of deep thoughts and a lot of therapeutic talks about that, and I wanted to really address it with the characters in the book in a way that would seem to be positive. You never really heal from a grief like that, but it becomes a part of you, and you have to just embrace it and feel your feelings. And hopefully, she manages that in a positive way in the story.
I do, and I am sorry for your loss for your brother. That is so tragic, and well, the loss is, and then to suffer in such a way, because we know that is, one of the worst cancers, if one can have degrees of it. But so I'm sorry for that. And as you say, translating or transferring it into how it is in the book, I feel it again is just authentic and helps us to, I hope we all learn. I know it was comforting for me, and I trust others will feel that message too.
Well, thank you, Kate. It was a pleasure to write. I felt, I would say, empowered by writing about it. I can't say it fixed me or made anything, less tragic. But on the other hand, to be able to share that on paper and with my readers was kind of validating for me, I suppose. And I hope that readers who've also experienced loss, which is pretty much everybody at some point in their life, will be able to relate to that and maybe take something away with that.
Part of what happens, I think, is you help us to be more philosophical about it. It's real. And that, and as, Nikki is guided by her friends to feel that loss, but to also know that it won't go away, but there's just like this scar that will have healed over, and life goes on.
It does, and it's a wavy road, and I think she experienced some of that in the book. It's certainly true to life, but I do love the high note that it ended on for Nikki.
And it's really coming full circle to see how it's beautiful, the progression over the decades, and it feels so natural, just natural, and the way it evolved, and to see the characters, it's just beautiful.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm so excited. It comes out June 20th, and I'm hitting the road, and you're giving me a lot of interesting angles to talk at my book talks that I'm doing on my book tour. People who are in Cleveland and St. Louis might want to check my schedule at SusanWiggs.com. If you're anywhere near there, I'd love to meet you.
Oh, for sure. I think that would be really great. I don't know that you have any local dates on your book tour.
I don't have anything. No, nothing in Puget Sound, although Liberty Bay Books is offering 20% off and a signed book and a friendship bracelet. So if you're in Poulsbo or you're on the web, you can go to Liberty Bay Books and order it there, and they'll do something a little special for you.
Well, that sounds like a treat. And of course, being summertime, why not, if we're on this side of the Sound, hop a ferry and get over there to see Liberty Books in person?
Oh, and Poulsbo is just such a charming little seaside town. It's well worth it. Very rewarding.
Right. Yes. So beautiful on there. And yes, it's summertime. So time for travel and time for getting your book and doing some beach reading about Welcome to Beach Town. I mean, what could be more, the stars aligning perfectly?
Oh, yeah. That's well, I've got a stack that I've been saving for the beach, and there's probably a beach on the cover of half of those books.
Because you have a little inclination towards that yourself.
I do. I live on the water, and I love it. It's not the Malibu beach, my fictional perfect little town, but it's certainly lovely, and we're blessed in the Pacific Northwest to have pretty much the nicest summers you can imagine anywhere. And so I'd like to picture my readers just kicking back on the patio, on the beach, in their comfy chair, reading a book.
Exactly. And so, yes, really key to remember, the book is just freshly out. So this is the time to get a copy and to just allow ourselves to really get immersed in an incredible story. And looking at, again, so many of the topics. Well, first of all, I want to go back to the surfing because I was thinking to write in the detail that you did about the experience of surfing, I felt you had to be a surfer yourself, but you said you've only really been out a couple of times.
Right. I went to surf camp, adult surf camp in Costa Rica a few years back, and I learned the basics. And I learned it on a very big board in really nice, friendly, warm water. And so, they got me up on the board long enough to do a little video and take some pictures, but wow, is it hard. So, and it's it's very elemental. And so that's why the descriptions, you feel the power of the waves and you feel you're part of it and you're powerless against it, which is actually kind of a liberating thought. You don't have to control everything. And so there's a lot of those images in the book, and they came from my personal experience and from doing a lot of reading and listening to podcasts and so forth about surfing.
And it's beautiful the way that that Nikki always goes back to it is it's her place in the world where she just she's really one with the ocean, and her dad even confirms that she was actually she's a dolphin in a human form.
That's right. That's right.
So that is really beautiful. The other thing is having the tragedies that occur, and you do refer to news headlines, and that happened again in this book too, that you referred to or include a reference to something that happened in recent history.
Oh, you're talking about the Murdoch murders.
Yes.
Yeah. I actually discovered that in a podcast, and it actually happened before the Murdoch family murders. There was a lot of drama around that whole little beachside town in South Carolina was where all that took place. And the thing that kind of stood out to me was a bunch of teenagers joyriding in a stolen boat, and tragedy ensued. And I kind of did a deep dive into that after I learned of it. And it was such a metaphor for the way that teenagers think and act and the choices they make, good and bad, and the fallout from all of those. And so that was kind of obliquely incorporated in the book as well.
Right. And I didn't make the connection with that in the book, but kind of reading about it afterwards and realizing the connections and kind of understanding more about it. But I think that too is really is a gift to us, to have us, kind of look beneath the surface of what goes on in our world and what we can do about it. I guess it comes back to being idealistically real.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I don't want to shy away from things that actually happen in the world, but I do want my books to put it into a context that makes sense and shows that there can be some, positive outcomes no matter what. But it's pretty tricky sometimes, isn't it?
It is. Definitely, but this is where you shine, obviously, having written 50 novels, and that's counting the ones that have been published, but that you've really presented so many stories, and they all feel unique. It's not like, there's this, a script to follow, and they all just kind of fit in there. They're just unique.
Well, there's a book that I really love. I've read it a couple times, called On Writing by Stephen King, and there's and he mentions in there, he says most writers really only have 3 or 4 stories that they keep coming back to again and again and again, and they kind of tell it in a different way every time. And I definitely feel that that's true. We all have our lane that we swim in, but because of human behavior in its endless variety, it's easy enough to make every story seem unique. And I think that every reader is unique too. I love the feedback that I get from readers, because they often see things that either I didn't intend or that I subliminally, slipped into a book or something like that, because reading is such a creative act. A lot of people don't see it that way, but it truly is, because you bring your own sensibilities to a story in a way that nobody else can. And so that's why I love to hear from readers. I love book clubs. Everybody has kind of a different take on each different story.
Exactly, and this is such a perfect book club book.
Thank you. My editor just sent me the book club questions. I think they'll be up on my website on SusanWiggs.com. She put some really thoughtful kind of think questions in her reader's guide. And so if anybody is, thinking of adopting it for their reading group, the guide is up on my website and probably, I think, on the HarperCollins website as well.
Wonderful. Oh, great. I'm so glad that you mentioned that because it's these days we can connect with friends who aren't necessarily in our neighborhood or right within our community because, again, I guess kind of thanks to the pandemic, we've become so much more into Zoom meetings and those kinds of chat things going on that make it possible for us to connect with each other so much more readily.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. Yes. So it really shows up, even though kindness really is present through so much of the book. I loved how in one of the characters does point out saying that his mother would say, kindness costs nothing. And kindness is so important to me. And I just latched onto that and thought, oh, this is so incredibly important because our world is so in need of kindness, and really it is something that costs us nothing, as he says.
Well, thank you for remembering. Yes, I definitely embrace that myself, and sometimes I have to pull back and remind myself, especially when I'm doing big city driving or something. But yep, that's true. Kindness and thoughtfulness.
Right. Well, well, Susan Wiggs, you are kind and you are definitely just such an amazing storyteller. I can't even really express enough how wonderful you are at this. Such a talent, and I think seeing you as New York Times bestseller and having 50 novels to your credit really underscores that as well. So let's mention your website once again, please.
Yes, SusanWiggs.com, Wiggs with 2 G's, and I'm all over the social media too, so if you search for me there, you can see what I'm up to and see some pictures.
Yes, and be entertained and definitely take advantage of the book club questions and just let that be a launching pad to some great connections with friends, and definitely have the copy of the book beforehand to get read and totally have an enjoyable summer.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, welcome to summer. Welcome to Beach Town. I hope everybody enjoys that book.
Well, I coming from my lips, this is really an amazing and fulfilling book. So, Susan Wiggs, thank you so much for being the storyteller you are and for spending time with us this morning.
Kate, thank you. I always enjoy chatting with you.
And that brings us to the end of a very full hour of Inspirational Women with Susan Wiggs and Sunday Morning Magazine with Jen Drummond. I'm Kate Daniels, your host, and I greatly appreciate your sharing this hour with me and these special guests. For details you might have missed or information you'd like to know, please just send me an email, kated@warm1069.com, and I will get right back to you. Also, if you'd like to listen again or to share these important stories with your family and friends, find the podcast on our Warm 1069 webpage. Just click on the podcast tab, then either of the show names, and then look for the guest names. I now wish you and your family a day of dreaming the best life you can live. Have a week of the same, and then please plan to join me again next weekend for another hour of Sunday Morning Magazine and Inspirational Women on Warm 1069. Good morning.